Hey gang, Joyce with Skipping Calves Farms. Um, it's Sunday afternoon late. I guess about 45 minutes to an hour before sunset, so it's about 5 o'clock, I guess. We dodged an early bullet with a winter storm. What they call it, Fern? Okay. I love these names for storms. Growing up, the only thing that had a name was a major hurricane, but some of the worst storms we ever had in my family home in the Tampa Bay area. We'd been there, well, my family's been there 150 years. Some of the worst storms were unnamed storms back in the 20s and in the 70s and 80s. But anyway, done a couple of other videos in terms of what I've done preparation-wise. We've had we had a bit of snow, and it's rained virtually all day today except for the last hour or so. Because my soil has healed pretty well, I don't have a lot of standing water like I would have. But there is still a little bit of standing water. Not right here, but like on the footpaths over by the truck box where I stand and open and close the fence. There's still a little bit of standing water. What I did, and it seems like I always forget to have my phone with me when I need to. So I cut the netting off of the bale of hay. I used the weed eater and cut it right about here, which is right about here is where I cut it, and then pulled it loose to the top and pulled it loose to the bottom, and that filled up the Vermont cart that I've got. And what I'm doing is I'm going to replace the old hay, because between the snow and rain that we had on Friday night, Saturday morning, and most of the day today, most of that hay is wet. And so I want to, we had some sunshine here a few minutes ago. I think it's supposed to clear up tonight. And with that, we're going to have radiant cooling, and it's going to get down and dirty. I don't think it's going to get down to 0 or below as they originally projected, but it's going to get down, I think, single digits or real close to it. So it's going to be, and in my language, butt kicking cold. Not only that, my animals have been out grazing all day in the rain, so I want to try and make sure I make them as comfortable as possible. So just that one layer of hay from that pulled off one flake from here, you can see it's kind of its own layer as it rolls. You end up, with a layer each time, and so it kind of provides its own water protection. And then I pulled it off all the way down to the bottom where it's sitting on the cinder block. Even though that is going to get wet, Lord willing, and the creeks don't rise, if you take a look here, it may get wet, but it shouldn't stay wet because it's still off the ground. It's still about 3 or 4 inches off the ground. So the idea is it'll get wet, but because it's off the ground, it will subsequently dry out. And all of a sudden, man, it just got a bit darker when the clouds kind of covered over the sun. It just got dark real fast. You may not be able to see it on the camera, but I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to go over and show you what I'm doing at the sheepfold end of things. Okay. So a bit earlier today, I did give, I tried to give daughter about a half a scoop of pellets. Mama came over and wanted some, so she got some as well, but daughter ate a little bit. She ate out of my hand better than she did out of the bucket. But the area where they're grazing now is an area where I did an experiment earlier in the summertime. And that particular area, I had them graze that hard. And you can see kind of the tufts are fescue, and they ate a lot of the succulent stuff in between, but now they're eating that fescue. That fescue is more vegetative than much of the rest because it didn't get grazed hard and early. So I just brought this protein bucket out. They didn't pay too much attention to it. I said a quick prayer. I added a little bit of water to it because it was really, really hard. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to leave it here, see if they come back and do anything. Mom's coming over because she hears me talking. I'm not talking to you, Mama. I'm talking to my camera. Talking to my phone. You want some protein? Yeah? Look at her. She's such a goofball. She's such a love muffin. Her with her floppy ear. Yeah. So, daughter's doing what she usually does. Look up, pay attention, go back to eating. But Mama always wants some TLC or some grain. And she's 14 years old, and she's probably not likely going to change her ways. But when she was here this summer, it took her a couple weeks to really get into grazing over here. Once she did really well. Her body condition improved and was actually better than what she had when she arrived, which did my heart good. I'm going to put you back on hold, and I'm going to walk around the long way. Rather than walk through this paddock, I'm trying to get in the habit of walking the paddock that they just grazed. Why? Because a lot of times I've got sheep manure on my feet, on my shoes. And they're not going to graze where they smell another animal's already been. And so I don't want to foul any more of the grass than I have to. So I'll just walk behind them. So with that, gang, let me put you on hold, and then I'll show you what I meant to show you before I got over here on the protein bucket. Oh, Mama followed me on over here, so I had to step down and give her a little bit of a scratch. When I start talking, she thinks I'm talking to her instead of I'm talking to y'all. And with that in mind, that's why I closed that gate, so they don't have access to the sheepfold momentarily at all, because they're on the other side of this double poly braid. And I do apologize, gang. When I get a one-track mind, I got to get this taken care of, and I got to get it taken care of before it gets dark. And it's getting dark pretty fast right now. I apologize sometimes for getting to bring you along on the beginning of the journeys, on the chores and stuff. So please forgive me. This is just kind of my day-to-day story, and I'm trying to share with y'all the thought process behind what I'm doing. I think if there's one thing, well, one of many, but I guess, but one thing that I think is really important, if you're going to do a farmstead or homestead or anything regenerative, I think, and I've had backup from some of the best grazers in the world when I say this, because I've shared it with them, and that is what you think, what I think, doesn't matter. How I think is key. The key to doing low-cost, regenerative, sustainable, whatever term you want to use, back to nature, yada, 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 right? If you want to take your place from where it is and get it back healthy so it can maintain itself, there's only, as Ian Michelina says, nature's the only one who has all the answers. So the key to our success is observing our animals, observing nature, and then figuring out what we can do to maximize that. And so that's basically what I try to do. And that's why I say what you think doesn't matter. How you think is key. Nature doesn't give a flying flip what I think. Nature doesn't like bare soil. So if my soil is unhealthy because it doesn't have any phosphate, nature's going to put, like what's right there in the middle, that's broom sedge. Because my phosphate levels are really low. Okay? So I'm in the process of fixing that. I've had chickens grazing in that chicken tractor before I even knew what I was doing. That chicken tractor was moving back and forth on this pasture. Now I was weed eating it pretty short in order to move that chicken tractor, but they were still manuring, putting their manure down. And chicken manure has a lot of phosphate. Human manure has a lot more. If you've ever looked at the ingredients of processed foods, there are a lot of ingredients with phosphates in it, and that's why our waste is so high in phosphate. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, have you ever heard of a chemical called glyphosate? I think it was originally called glyphosate, and they've changed it. Phosphate in many ways can be used as a chelating agent. What is a chelating agent? A chelating agent is a binding agent. So it'll take a mineral or a cation and bind it, which means it's no longer bioavailable. No wonder nutrition is such a huge issue for our soils, for our plants, for our animals, and for ourselves. Oh my goodness, I am standing on a very tall soapbox. Let me get off my soapbox and let me get back to work here. So, yeah, because it's getting dark. So, as you can see, I had spread, and I did another video, I'd spread this hay out. Tried to pick up as much of the manure as I could before I put the hay down. I tried not to put it down too thick, but I wanted it to try and give them enough so that they wouldn't be sitting in or standing in muddy, nasty, poopy ground. And for the most part, I think I achieved my objective, and I did it with this roll of old hay. There was no way they were going to eat it. And it doesn't look like they're too interested in the new hay that I just got either. Even though it is, you can see how yellow this stuff is. The new hay does have a little bit of green tinge to it. But if you look at it, you can also see it's pretty stemmy. I think it's probably third cutting. There's a lot of seed heads in it. So it's not a prime hay for sheep at all. And if they don't eat it, well, Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, I should have enough fescue so that they can graze. If we can get 3 grazings off of my pasture, if we get the spring flush, where we've got 6 to 8 or 8 to 10 inches of growth in the spring, by the time I'm done with the 3rd grazing, I'll be very, very happy. With this weather coming through, I've given the sheep access to a huge percentage of my paddock. And the reason being, I did not want to risk them being restricted in any way when they're facing wet, cold issues, and when daughter is coming up on her last trimester of her pregnancy. So she should be probably starting next week or so be considered heavy bred, and she'll be about 6 weeks out or so. So anyway, so that bit that I peeled off the 5-foot bale just about fills this Vermont card. So that's about the equivalent of about 1/4 of a yard of volume. So what I decided to do is, over here, I just brought the spade fork, or tater fork, whatever you want to call it, and I started to peel back what was up here. Now you can see what was right up in the corner stayed pretty dry, and that was after having 15-mile-an-hour winds from the north, which is facing just about like that, of snow and rain for about 24 hours straight. Daughter did sleep up here in the corner, as best I can tell. It's where I saw her last night, and then where I saw her first this morning. So Mama was on her feet. But so what I'm doing now is, you can see, here's the roof line. I was able to extend it out just a little bit. So we've got about 5 or 6 feet from the edge of the roof line back to this corner. That's enough room for both of them to be back in there and out of the northerly wind. Now, weather says we're going to be getting a wind from the south tonight, and that's when it's going to turn cold, which doesn't make too much sense to me. That being the case, you can see how I've pulled this hay back and just kind of lined it up. And if I turn this on an angle there, you can kind of see that's kind of parallel with the roofing line, and I'm going to pull the rest of this back. And the idea being, it'll hopefully act as a little bit of a buffer. If the wind does come in this way, it'll give them a little bit of buffer as they're down on the ground here. And I will be putting new hay back through and in all of this area, and then I haven't decided yet whether I'm just going to cover this with some new hay, or if I'm going to pull this back and put new hay down. I think I'll probably just cover it with new hay, because I might as well take advantage of what's already there. It'll give it a little bit more buffer, and their manure is still kind of log-like, as opposed to what I call pellet poop. Somebody else has called it raisinets, but they're like little chocolate-covered raisins when it's kind of dry. And that's the way it was when they first got here. But once they started grazing green, because it's about 24 to 36 hours from when they eat at one end for it to come out on the other. So both of them are still kind of, they're not producing pellets. They're producing something a little bit more like you would expect. Not from a cow necessarily, but more people looking. Little blocky. You can see the outline of the pellets, but they're all stuck together in kind of like a little log. So I'm saying that that's due to the fact that there's so much moisture in their feed, and it's not getting any worse, so I'm just keeping my eye on it. And there you have it. So, yep, Mom came over because I've been talking. And I turned my back on her, and so now she's going back the other way because she's wondering, what's Mom talking about? Anyway, so with that, gang, this video has gone on 20 minutes, so it's time. It's time to get back to work. So we're gonna pull the old hay down, put fresh dry hay in here, and see if we can't keep the kids as comfortable as possible tonight. And so they've had access to pellet feed, they've had access to sweet feed, they've had access to the protein bucket, and they didn't want any of it, but they are grazing the fescue. So everybody will tell you animals know best, and so that's kind of encouraging. With that, gang, I will wish you blessings for the day, and whatever you do, just keep chasing the dream.